Can you guys hear me? Let me just confirm that first.
Yes.
Awesome. Hey everyone, I'm Atriya Majumdar, final year EC, current president of IE NITK. My experience with GSoC was a bit turbulent during the application phase because at first I decided that I'd like to go with Julia, right? And I'd like to contribute to like Julia ML or something. So ultimately, I ended up deciding on trying to get started with trying to get started with geostatistics. So there's this library called geostats.jl. So just to give you a quick introduction, Julia is a programming language which is made specifically for scientific computation. So it has the ease of Python with the speed of C++. So I was quite interested in this. I wanted to apply and all, but then unfortunately, due to certain reasons, things didn't work out, and it was already quite late in the application phase. So I had to pivot and had to pivot fast. So I just stuck to what I knew. I had done a few ML projects earlier in college, and I was quite confident in my DLML skills and all. So I was like, okay, cool. Let's just look for some deep learning projects, right? So I was just browsing through and I found this post on LinkedIn which stated that okay, so this is another tip. Basically, keep your eyes peeled for LinkedIn and Twitter posts because there are a lot of times organization mentors will write stuff about like which projects need members, etc. So I saw that Mr. Nathan Frey, who's doing his postdoc at MIT right now, was posted that open chemistry, especially deep chem, which is a library for deep learning in chemistry, requires like needs some Google Summer of Code students to expand the library, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. This sounds like it's right up my alley. Even though I'm not that great at chemistry, I think I can still manage because my deep learning skills are there. So basically, the application period is mostly going to be you trying to connect with the organization, right? You enter the IRC channel. It can be Gitter, it can be some other medium, and you start getting to know them. You start getting to know why they made the project, who uses the project, um, like where the applications are for that project, etc. So that's how you get started, and after that, slowly as you feel more and more comfortable, you start contributing to the code base of the organization. So contributing to an open source code base, especially a large project, can be a very daunting task for beginners, right? Because it's just so much code and like you have to sit and understand it. So the thing is, you can actually look at it piece by piece. You can look at it function by function. For example, let's say I just want to look at like a few classification models, right? Like in the entire repository, I'll just go over the classification models and see what all they have, how they've implemented it, what code styles they're following, what functions they're using, what fields have they not focused on yet, which I can contribute to the repository, right? So this way you can start understanding the entire code base piece by piece, and it makes the job easier for you as well. So after that's done, you identify some specific issues, right? Where, for example, there is something that the repository will benefit from if you add it, or there is a small bug or a small error, right, which you can fix. So you go ahead, do that, and like resolve that. You send out a pull request or a merge request, whatever platform using GitHub or GitLab, and like that will mark your first contribution. So one very helpful thing these days is that when you go to these repositories and you go to the issues section, right, there'll be a lot of issues noted down, and there are a few issues that are marked as beginner contributions, right? So those are the very easy ones that first timers can actually do, and it won't require a lot of commitment from you in terms of like time or understanding the code base. Like you can do it in a more chill way comparatively. So from there you move into like deeper issues, right? So that's how you start contributing. So it's always good to have a few contributions under your belt in terms of pull requests. So generally a good benchmark would be around 3 to 5. Now there are like, obviously the quality of the PRs also depends on this. Like it can't be like you've only sent out 3 PRs of like one line code change each, right? It needs to be something tangible, something that they're actually benefiting from. For example, I sent out like 6 pull requests or something, and they were all adding loss functions and optimizers. So those are something that the community will actually benefit from because it gives them more range to work with the models, right? Anyway, so that was just an example, and yeah, so that and just make sure that the idea that you're proposing is something that the community will actually benefit from. The thing is, like people don't really care how much or how long you've worked. They care more about if you will work and how much your proposal will actually benefit the organization or the repository. That's what matters more, right? So don't think it just because like you work for 9 months and your proposal is okay, you'll get in because you work for 9 months. That's not how it works. Your proposal needs to be bang on, and the mentors need to think that yes, this project idea is exactly what we need, which is why we're taking this person. Now the thing is, the added 9 months or whatever of work is just an extra cherry on the top because like if two people have very good proposals, they're obviously going to choose the person who's made contributions prior. But yeah, both are important in my opinion. So yeah, that's about it from my end in terms of the application process. And the rest is just like normal. The project was just adding a molecular attention transformer, which is an attention transformer is basically a type of sequential model. So my project was basically about taking input molecular graph data structures, calculating certain features, and making classification and regression models for molecular properties such as hydration enthalpies and all. So, yeah, that's it from my end. Thank you for listening. And I'd like to hand it over to Ria again.
Thank you so much, Atreya, for sharing your valuable experience. Next, we have Harshita, who has successfully completed GSoC in 2021 with FUSI. Harshita, would you like to share your experience?
Yeah, sure. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. So, hello everyone, myself Harshita. I'm final year AC student, and this year I took part in GSoC 2021. And basically, I worked for organization called FOSSI, which is free and open source silicon. So, basically, if you're looking for any hardware projects where you want to get a feel of Verilog, TL Verilog, FPGA, then you can find this organization as one of the option if you're planning to apply for GSoC 2022. And my project is basically was on OpenRISC project, which started in 2000, where it's a open source processor where you can use it for your embedded applications. It's a free processor, and it main feature of this processor is like it gives a feel of virtual processor. You can run this processor on your local machine and you can write an assembly code for this. That's what it makes it unique, and you have a few support for that. So this is the brief idea about what the OpenRISC community is. So when I was looking for GSoC projects in the FOSSI, there were a lot many projects, and see if you are looking planning to apply for GSoC, you need to go through all the projects which they have listed out there, and based on your interest, you have to choose something which fits you and which you like a lot. I didn't have much experience of formal verification. This was still a new thing to me, but I had verified the SPI protocol. But verifying the one a single protocol is entirely different from verifying the entire processor. So that was quite challenging for me. And if you look at the formal verification tools, it's like costlier. If you look for Synopsys and any other vendors, it's like way too costlier. You can't get through that. So this Yosis formal is some supporting this open source formal verification tool. Since it won't support the entire system verilog assertion, but it do support immediate assertions, and still they are working on improving the system verilog assertion, giving a support of concurrent assertion. So let me give you an idea of what is formal verification is and why what it makes different from functional verification. I hope you might have come across functional verification where you write Verilog test benches in order to make sure whether your RTL code is as you expect, the way working as you're expected. But how many input patterns apply to the RTL code while testing? It's limited, right? So you apply 2-3 vectors and just check whether it's working as per your requirement. But there may be cases where some input vectors may bring out some bugs in your design. So in order to verify such cases, you have to go for formal verification. It's not that you apply every vectors in the formal verification, but you just assert some properties of the processor, which is enough. Like you can make sure that if this property is valid for all the test cases, then we can say that this processor is free from bugs. So people follow this formal verification, and it's in great demand in order to uh, produce a processor which is of bug free. And this year they had OpenRisk wanted to work upon the formal verification using US's formal tools, and I didn't actually get through mentor before GSoC. After GSoC only I got to connect with the mentor. But what I did was before applying for this proposal, I just went through what did Morvan Cakes did and what are the requirements and uh, what is they expect out of that. I just listed out all these things, and proposal. What I did was basically stick on to the work plan. Like you have to put up things in your proposal which is doable in the given time span. Maybe it's okay if you don't do it within that. It depends upon the mentor. Like my mentor was like, it's like entirely processor, right? It might take a lot much of time to do the complete verification. In the initial meet, he was like, okay, if you couldn't complete it within a time, you can just extend it after GSoC also is totally fine. But what we expect is just introduction of formal verification to OpenRISC processor. That's what I got confidence and I got moved on with my project. Uh, since I told you like I was still a beginner at the formal verification, I get a lot of feedback from other OpenRISC community people. Or I can just post it off in the mailing list or any other queries. I could get immediate feedback from them, and I had a habit of writing blogs on my work. So I used to get a feedback from Zip CPU Dan Janicalist, who is a good expert in the formal verification, and his suggestions and his feedbacks really helped me to accelerate the speed of my project, because I was actually stuck with a simple module for 2 weeks. That made me doubt myself whether I could complete the project within the given period of time. But later, I could accelerate myself, because the initial phase is something which I need to explore things and I need to learn a lot. But once I'm done with learning phase, it's everything goes in a flow, and that was all. So I could say the challenging one in GSoC is just getting your proposal accepted. More than that, it's everything goes in a flow. You just need to stick on to the deadlines, and that's how it is. Yeah, like if you are interested to contribute for OpenRisk, you can subscribe to mailing list and get contact with the mentors. Then they will really help you out. Or you can post a message in Jitter too. That's really helpful. So that's all from my side. If you have any queries, then I could take up.
Thank you, Harshita, for sharing your valuable experience. Next, we have Prakriti Goel, who is the current convener of IE. She has completed GSoC in 2020 with CRIU. She has also done an Amazon internship in 2021, and she'll be joining Google in 2022. Prakriti, would you like to share your experience?
Hi everyone, am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay, so my journey for GSoC kind of started like everyone present in this call. I attended this seminar they had, except it was offline and we had free pizza, so that's what I went for. And over there, that's for the first time in my second year I heard about GSoC. And that intrigued me because it had the tag of Google, open source, and all those buzzwords. And I was like, okay, this is something I would like to do. Next day, the very next day, we had a call. We had another talk, a KEP internal to IE from the IE seniors, and that was also about GSoC. And yeah, I mean, that was, and that's when I knew that who to contact for GSoC and how to proceed with it. And that's when I decided that okay, I would like to proceed with GSoC. Now, this was around November of 2019. Yeah, November 2019. Then came the NSIMS, and I just kept focusing on that, and this got forgotten. Next semester, I started this you can say mentorship program for particularly people who are interested in applying for GSoC. So there were all my seniors there, and they kept encouraging me to apply. But yeah, so I kept asking them again and again because I didn't really understand what open source was. I was in my second year. I didn't know much about anything actually in technical side, and I was still very confused about what open source is. So that's when but open source is nothing but just a project which anyone can work on. Like something big companies work on is private to them. Open source is something that's public, available, filled with bugs for everyone to fix or features to add. So this is what open source project looks like, which I understood pretty late. But yeah, so initially I wasn't sure. I kept asking, what is open source exactly? And it's okay if you don't really understand it. I mean, if you just go to their website and look at a few projects on GitHub, or if you try for Hacktoberfest, which will be coming up next month, it will give you a small idea about what it is. Yeah, so that's how to begin. Now, I actually started looking. I did apply for Winter of Code in December month, and my mentor was again an IE senior who had previously done GSoC. So I was working under him on his organization. So that's where I got the basic idea about what open source is. I worked on his project, and the main aim was of the project was just to install the code, get it working on my system, and try to make small changes such that a small change to the code such that it makes a difference. That's all the aim of the whole mentorship was. It was a 4-week program, and that's all I did in it. So setting up project is also quite difficult if you guys find that hard. So you just take it step by step with the help of seniors, and it works. Then I took it up again in February when the organization lists were released. I hadn't, yeah, so that's when I decided to go with a new org. And what I did was I looked, so once the org list was released, there were around 200 to 250 orgs in the list. I went through all of them. I looked at what interested me. I looked at the technology, the language, and something that I could maybe work on, and made a a sheet out of it with the organization name and the project which I would be probably interested in. And this is how I shortlisted around 23 projects from the 200 into how many ever projects they had. And then I started looking at it one by one. And for some reason, none of them seemed interesting anymore, except two of them. So I started working on contributing to these two organizations. One of them was CRIU, another one was Anita Bjork. And now the project I chose you could say was kind of a bit of a luck actually. Um, the it I had been for my course I had an operating systems course that semester, and my project that I chose for that course was was related to logging. And the project which I did under CRIU was to optimize their logging engine. Now, this familiarity just made me want to select that project. And yeah, so that's how I started my journey. And then I mailed the mentors that I'll be interested in working this. Could you please guide me on how to proceed further? They did not have a patch, they did not have a PR requirement, but I still looked at some beginner issues to get me started to get set up this code base on my system. And yeah, once I got that submitted, I made a lot of mistakes in the initial phase because I was learning. But what I did was after each mistake, I went back, whatever their comments was, I tried to implement them, and I sent it back. And I think that's what the mentors liked about me, because that's what made them think that I will be working on whatever is asked from me. So just do not give up midway. Even if you're doing mistakes, even if you're getting comments, don't get intimidated by it, because even the most professional people who work on these, they also get comments on their commits. So just keep trying. That would be one thing I'd like to say. And yeah, and then slowly I just kept working. I worked on the proposal. I submitted it, and then on the day the results came out, I came to know I got selected. Now, rest of the journey, I think we can ask me in the questions part. But that's all I had for the introduction. Over to Ria.
Thank you so much, Prakriti, for sharing your valuable experience. Next, we have Misha Shah, who is the former IE convener, and he has successfully completed GSoC in 2019 with NSC, and he is currently working at Cisco. I would like to invite Misha to share his experience. Misha. Hello. Your voice is a bit low.
He just pinged me. He's facing some issues with his phone, so I think we can move ahead and we can come back to him.
Okay, sure. So let's have Rahul, who is our former IE Code SIG head and who has successfully completed GSoC in 2020 with OpenStreetMap. He has also done a Microsoft internship in 2020 and is currently working at Microsoft.
Hello.
I would like to
Yeah,
hand it to,
sure, sure, go on.
I would like to hand it over to Rahul. Over to you.
Sorry, go on. I
Hey,
think
continue. Yeah.
yeah. Hi, sorry about the this confusion. Yeah. Hi everyone. Hope everyone is doing fine. Uh, let me know if any of the voice, if there is any issue from my end, there is like audio issue or there is any noise. Uh, so yeah, I had done my GSoC with OpenStreetMap. Uh, like, just give me 1 second. Hi everyone. So yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I had done my GSoC with OpenStreetMap, uh, OpenStreetMap's Nominatum project. Before I get to the project, I'll tell you about how I started GSoC and how I applied for it. First of all, in my second year, like I got introduced to like what is open source, what is GSoC, by few talks which happened in the college. I think like a lot of you are attending this talk for the same reason to know about open source and like GSoC. So that's I guess like the best step you could take to get started. uh, After that, yeah, first thing was people told me like there is a huge, application process. Like you apply for organizations, there is a review process. You contact mentors. Okay, I got a bit intimidated by all this, but like it's pretty straightforward process that you propose like there is a project that you take up, you go end to end. I think Prakriti might have already mentioned about this, right? Like there is a proposal that you create and tell how exactly you're going to build what you're building. Then you go about building it. Uh, so coming to the planning process, you don't have to think a lot before you start the whole thing. For that, you just think of this as an opportunity for you to look at uh, development in different. Yeah, am I still connected? Hello, can
Yes,
someone
yes,
just
you're there.
confirm?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So yeah, like if you are aspiring to do more projects and get into like learning more stuff, GSoC is like the perfect place for you. Uh, and like coming to the entire process of creating an application or like this, if it intimidates you, don't think of all that. Just take it step by step. You could like maybe get in contact with some seniors who did it like personally as well. Like if you're intimidated by some steps, but especially when it comes to the proposal itself, you can start by picking organizations, as I think steps were mentioned by Prakriti and others who spoke before. But yeah, organization picking could be like a lot of people go by projects that are already in tech stack that have worked on, or tech stack that they would like to learn and work on. But one advice that I got from a senior was that go for a project which you really like, because at the end of the day you are contributing to the organization your contributing to the cause that, like, the open source cause that they are working for. So if you think of it in that point of view, I mean, if you're someone who is not sure what they want to do, like the tech stack for in terms of the project that they have picked up, we could go by this. So uh, finishing this off, uh, yeah, yeah, uh, uh, yeah, I guess that can you like eh, eh, any any step of the process, like maybe starting the application, maybe just emailing that particular mentor from a random country which you have no clue about, like, and don't let anything stop.
Hello,
Like,
Rahul.
because
Sorry to disturb, but
that's
your
what
voice is
stopped
breaking.
me in second.
Hello, Rahul.
Hello,
Your voice. Hello. Yeah, you're audible now.
is
Your
my
voice
voice
was.
clear right now?
Yeah, now it's
Eh,
clear. It was breaking for the
Yeah,
last 30 seconds.
okay, okay. I think I had some signal issues back then. Yeah, so I was getting started with, like, how exactly my GSoC went. Yeah, as I was saying, I did not apply on second. Uh, the end of second year, but I applied in my
Sorry, your voice is
third
breaking
year,
again. Hello.
where uh, I uh, uh, approached, like I went through the organizations which are already there. Like, uh, I got initial inspiration from the club again. And, like, people said, like, hey, if you want to start, oh, okay, wait, let me try something else. Let me know when, like, you can hear what.
Yeah, your voice is like breaking. Like sometimes, like we can hear, but then in the middle when you start speaking, it's breaking. I guess we can join you later when you're audible. So let's move towards the last part of the session. Before that, I would like to
Oh, can you continue the talk? I'll try joining back in a minute.
Yeah,
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 sure. Yeah, yeah,
Then
sure.
the speaker next.
Yes, sure.
Can something be done?
Yeah, we'll join you in later when your mic is working. When you're So let's move towards the last part of the session. Before that, I would like to congratulate Pawan Vanchani, Akshit Patel, and Shreyansh who from IE who successfully completed their GSoC project. Unfortunately, they couldn't be with us today. Now we shall have the Q&A session. You can raise your hand if you have any questions or type them out in the chat box, and we'll have our panel members answer them. The stage is all yours. Okay, Adarsh has raised his hand. You can unmute and speak.
So good evening, everyone. So what I wanted to ask was when you start looking at the previous year GSoC projects or something. Usually they mention the languages also that they have used, and usually I don't know every language, something like 50%. So should I try to learn more languages, or is it fine if with what I know I start with already now?
Okay, Adarsh, so I would say you don't really need to know the language. You always have the support of Google for the entire 3 months. And you can, I mean, once you get selected, you have this community bonding period of 1 month where you can learn their language. And as you work on it, you will gain knowledge about that language as well. So if you have started working, if you know one language, if you know how it functions, it's more about the logic, and the syntax can be figured out later as well. So that's my opinion on it.
But I'd just like to add on to that, sorry, just give me a minute. Um, yeah, so basically, whatever project that you shortlist, right? While it's absolutely all right if you don't know about the code base from before or you've never used it or something, uh, like the project will be in a specific domain, right? You need to have knowledge of that domain before you apply. For example, like since my project was in machine learning, I'm going to be talking with that as an example, but this applies to every other domain as well. For example, if I'm applying to, let's say, my org only, deep chem, right? Like, for example, my chemistry is absolutely zero. I don't know anything in chemistry. I'm very bad at it. But I had knowledge of deep learning at least, right? Like, I knew how to construct a neural net. I knew how to write custom layers. I knew how to develop testing suites for models, right? So you need to have that sort of basic knowledge at least before applying, because if you don't, then you'll end up failing the project, right? Like, I'm sorry, it sounds a bit harsh, but I have seen this happen. It's rare, but it does happen. So just ensure that you know about the domain first. If you know about the domain, but not the project itself, it's absolutely okay, no issues. But you need to have domain specific knowledge so that you can build upon that knowledge during the project itself. Like GSoC requires a lot of research during the project, right? Um, Getting your application accepted is actually easier than completing the project. So yeah, that's all I had to say about this.
Great. We have another question in the chat box. Like, do you recommend trying GSoC while simultaneously doing an internship? Like in third year, maybe? Or no?
I think Rahul here? I think he can answer this very well.
Yeah.
Rahul, are you there?
I think he is facing issues.
No issues.
So
Achha, okay.
We'll put
I
this on
think
hold if
Prakriti
he
can
comes.
take this up.
Yeah. Let's wait for Rahul to come back because he did this and he's more qualified to speak about this. So
So I'll tell you what I know from him till he joins. He said that what happened was he spoke to his manager about doing this, and during the evaluation periods he took certain breaks from his internship. He yeah, and also while doing his internship, he took a little break for a break from GSoC. So he had to manage both simultaneously. Also, most of the GSoC work was done before he started with his internship. So about does he recommend it or not, you'll have to ask him. But this is how he managed it. Yeah, more details can be given once he joins.
Hmm.
Cool. We'll move on to the next question till then. What exactly are the necessary prerequisites to get started to contribute to open sources?
Um,
No prerequisites as such.
yeah, there's everything you can learn.
See, that's the beauty of open source. It's all about just learning and implementing on the go. You don't need to have like massive um production level code or whatever ready. Like you don't need to have all those skills from the get go, right? You start learning, you start implementing slowly, and that's how you build. So you don't need to know everything from the beginning. See, I mean, honestly, I think that's why sending PRs before the GSoC application period is encouraged by organizations, because you actually end up adapting to how the organization contributes code to the code base, right? So that way, again, it's just an example of another learning process. So you don't really need to know anything from the beginning. You just need to start building upon yourself. That's all.
So adding on, but there's a few skills that if you have, it's going to make it easier for you. Like if you know Git, which is a version control language, it will make it extremely easy for you to make changes to the code, push your PRs, and make the changes. So Git is something that you should learn. It's not a very hard thing to learn. It'll take you max 1 day to master it. So Git is something that you should work on. And like as Atra mentioned, the basic knowledge about the organization's domain. That is something that you need. You can learn it while contributing. So there's not a prerequisite, but it's just the skills that will help, that you will learn through it and make it easier for you.
Great. So next question is, I guess, along the similar lines. Like, is it necessary to do a contribution? And if yes, like, when should one start contributing to open source, to get selected?
So can I just preface this by saying your end goal should not be GSoC. GSoC is just a means to open source contributions. Your goal should be open source contributions. But leaving the idealistic part aside, see, thing is, okay, actually, can you just repeat the last part again? Yeah.
Yeah, like when should we start contributing to open source? Like, if our end goal is GSoC, or yeah, something
Right.
else.
No, Acha, I think the question,
If
the
you want to
part
get,
before that was whether contributions are necessary. It depends on
yeah,
the organization.
Yes.
It's very org
So
specific. Sorry,
so
Prakriti,
some
go ahead.
organizations do have a patch requirement where they require you to submit some part of the at least some have a requirement of at least 2 PRs, or some have some specific questions that you're supposed to answer before they can select you. And this is what you need to mention in your proposal. Now, this will be given in their proposal format. So for them, it is necessary to contribute while applying or before applying. So you can share the links. Now, that is org specific. Now, even if you don't have that, making PRs shows that you are capable of doing it. Like you are someone who has the basic knowledge. It shows the mentors, it gives them confidence that you can work. So while it's not compulsory for all organizations, I highly suggest you do it, because you will also know if you can do it. It'll give you confidence on your own. But it's not necessary. Also,
Yes. Sorry, go
answering
ahead. Go ahead.
when to start. I started working on the organization, which I got selected in February. I think I sent the first PR after lockdown. So it completely varies. So I think Atreya was working on his for like 6, 7 months.
No.
No? Okay, sorry.
For open chemistry, right? I sent my first PR after proposal submission.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Acha, so that reminds me, you can actually talk to your mentors and ask them if they're okay with with considering PR contributions after report submission, and always get your report checked, not report, sorry, proposal doc checked by the mentors. Ask them for feedback, send it to them for like 2, 3 iterations, but obviously don't bug them too much about it. So they'll give you a list of like whatever they want to see there, whatever's right, whatever's wrong, and accordingly you can edit your proposal. And yeah, just basically talk to the mentors about, or talk to the community members about how you want to proceed with your PR contributions.
great. So the next question is how to learn building blocks, structures, functions, logical flowcharts, etc. of the code base.
That is something you have to study by yourself. Like you just open their code base on GitHub, GitLab, whatever, just go through it. Generally, what's very helpful is you can go through the. So generally, these open source organizations have like read the docs or whatever, basically documentation, right? They'll have their own websites of documentation. So you go through those. That's the most helpful. So, for example, you read about one module in there. Let's say there's a model module in there, which just talks about like classification models. So you see, for example, one classification model DMPNN, the message passing neural network, and then you go back to the code base on GitHub, and then you see, okay, so this is the code, and this is how it's working. This class is deriving from this parent class, and this parent class encompasses this, etc. So it has to be like you're concurrently reading both the documentation and the corresponding code part on GitHub.
Great. Yeah. So the next question that we have is, should we focus more on getting an internship and learning DSA and other important stuff? He's not being in CS or IT branch, or should we focus on GSoC basically? Yeah.
Which, sorry, what was the part about not being in CSIT?
The person who has asked this is not in CSIT branch.
Achha, so I'm not in CSIT. So being in CS or IT or not being in CS or IT is not really a factor as to whether you get an internship or a job or GSoC or whatever, right? Like no one cares at the end of the day if you have the skills. So yeah, I mean, if any of you would like to talk about this, otherwise I'll continue.
Okay, what do you mean by other important stuff? Could you add on to that, Aman? Because yeah, if you could unmute it and add on to what you mean by other important stuff, I think we'll be able to answer better.
Like the other important topics like OOPS or completed programming and something.
Okay, so OOPS is something that you learn while implementing. Like if you try to read it, you will memorize it, but you will never really understand it until you implement it. Now, what GSoC helps you with is the practical application of all these skills. Now, you could learn it in the traditional way by, so you learn all the concepts by doing projects. If you are like, I'm from IT and all my courses have a project because that's how the practical learning works. Now, if you learn the basics and do not implement it, there's a high probability that you will forget it. Now, what GSoC or open source in general helps you with is it gives you a project to work on. So whatever you're learning, you will be able to implement it and learn it better. So that's why GSoC is something, or GSoC is a now GSoC is really helpful for beginners who are starting out in open source because it provides you a mentor who helps you contribute for the open source as a whole. So there's a mentor, there's someone who you can ask help from, there's a guide for you. That's why GSoC is something which is recommended, which is there for the at least college students. Open source in general is open for everyone, as it says open source. So yeah, it's basically a project that you could work on, and yeah, it's like an internship itself, because in an internship you would be doing a project, right? But it's for some specific company. Over here it's a specific org. So if you can just keep working on it, it is like an internship in a way, and doing any project for any.
I mean, NITK does recognize GSoC as a valid internship. Like I just submitted my internship report for that. So did a lot of other people in their previous year. But I think part of the question was also whether should we go for an internship in a company or GSoC. So honestly, that completely depends on you. Now, the thing about GSoC in India is that I mean, I'm not trying to be pretentious or anything when I say this, but GSoC is quite valued in India. So you can definitely sub it for an internship in a Fortune 500 or whatever. So it's definitely not an issue, and it is going to be as valuable, if not more. So don't worry about it. You can go for whatever you want.
You can even try for both.
Yeah, but then you might need to manage your time very well, and if you can't, then don't do it. But yeah.
So the next question is, to what extent GSoC helped all of you to get placed?
Oh, okay, I would like to answer this.
Yeah.
I think it added a significant value to my resume. Like most of the times, cracking interviews is not as hard as getting shortlisted for them, right? So, in all the big companies, like all the FANG companies, it's usually the case where you need to get shortlisted. And having GSoC in my resume did help me a lot with that. I mean, yeah. So also another thing it helped me with is gave me the confidence that I can work on any project. So these two things is what it helped me with. Also, it helped me gain the knowledge, which later helped me work on the projects during my internship as well. Yeah, if someone else would like to add on, Harshita, Atreya.
Yeah, I'd like to add on. So basically, generally during placement season, like it's just how I got placed, right? Someone with my okay, I don't want to say it like that. Basically, it just like you're guaranteed to get shortlisted by any and all companies. So it just becomes very easy to get shortlisted. And once you get shortlisted, it's just up to your skill whether you get placed or not. So, but the first stage you get through very easily, so especially if you're not from CSIT. So.
I would like to answer this. Like GSoC, after doing a GSoC, it gives me more confidence on yourself. Like you can do something like as Prakriti said, and not just the project you learn more other skills. Like I wasn't good at Git, and but after doing a project, I got all the features of Git. I learned it, and even my blogging skills were improved, as well as many other things. See, continuous integration was also which I wasn't not knowing, but after that I could learn it, and I also integrated my project where all the PRs which we are getting merged, so it will check whether the PRs is as expected or which is not deviating from our actual things. So that's how it's helpful. You just not learn whatever you're mentioned in your proposal, you learn more than that, and more than anything it's just a confidence you get. And even in your interview they will ask you like how was your journey, so just explaining them things was something which I felt happy. So that's all.
Also, I'd like to add one more thing. So, the main takeaway from GSoC is that you're writing production level code that is being used by thousands, if not tens of thousands of people worldwide at the very minimum. And the thing is, the fact that you've already written production level code is something that interviewers value very highly. So that will definitely help you. Like you can legit say that, yes, I have written code that many people use worldwide and it's production level and I know how to do it. And it also tells people that, yes, you know what you're talking about, you know your domain. And that matters a lot, especially for fields like ML or something where like a lot of people want to get in. There are people who have half-baked knowledge. There are people who have a lot, but then it sometimes gets very difficult to sort through them for an interview because they have very limited time. So this is how they do it. They look at your experience and they say that, okay, this guy did this. That means he knows something. So we can move forward with him. So you get the point.
Right. So the next question that we have is, what are the other ways we can contribute to open source apart from GSoC?
So MLS Fellowship is one. So MLS Fellowship has an open source track which you can apply to. However, I feel like it's a bit more difficult to get into MLS. But then, like it's on a rolling basis. So the MLS Fellowship will have like 4 different periods in which it accepts like 100 to 150 people each cycle. So a total of 600 throughout the year. Other than that, also, you don't really have to apply through a program, right? Open source, you can just go onto GitHub and start contributing just like that. That's the main thing. It doesn't have to be a program. Open source work is not supposed to be monetarily rewarding. It's supposed to be like you giving back to the community. That's the entire point of open source software. So, yeah, I mean, you can just go onto GitHub, GitLab, and then just go to a repository and get started from there itself. You don't need to apply through a program or anything as such.
Okay, so yeah, I'll just start to add on that you have a lot of programs. Programs just help you get started. You have Hacktober coming up. You have Winter of Code by NITK coming up. You have other there's many. I mean, I can share a list with you if you'd like. But this will help you as it will give you a mentor to get started with. But anytime you could just approach anyone in the community and ask them that, hey, I'm new to new to open source. Could you please guide me with it? And all of them are extremely nice people. Okay, so they will definitely help you regardless of anything else. So you don't need to be worried about starting. You don't need to be worried about contacting people of the community. Some of them might give you some of them might be a little intimidating and not but if you're willing to learn, all of them would be willing to help you, is what I'd like to say.
Thank you. Does anyone have any more questions? You can type it on the chat or you can directly unmute and ask. We'll be waiting for another minute.
Okay, so I texted Rahul regarding the question about is it recommended? He wasn't able to join because of net issues. So he said that yes, if it's an online medium, it will be easy for you to manage both a GSoC and an internship. But if it's online, it'll be kind of hard for it. So if it's an online medium, you can definitely try for both. But yeah, during an offline mode, unless
Yeah, I
you
mean,
think.
this year they halved the time commitment as well. So a lot more people applied this year who already had company internships in hand. Uh, but yeah, again, it completely boils down to whether you can manage your time or not. And honestly, whatever time, however much time you think it's gonna take double of that. Like that's just how it works. So just budget it accordingly. But if you still you can do it, then absolutely go for it because then you're doing like two very prestigious things. So yeah. Also, what about Mishal? Have you guys talked to him? Is he coming?
He's facing some net issues, so
Okay.
you guys can like text us if you have any questions for them on Insta, DM us, and we'll make sure we get back to you regarding it.
Yes.
Yes, we have another question in the chat box, which is I think related to the domain in the GSoC project, which would be more preferable for the dream companies like Google, Microsoft. For example, like networking is preferable for Cisco, risk for semiconductor companies.
Development, right? I don't know. It's do you guys want to go ahead with it, Prakriti?
Um. Okay. So there is companies don't really look for the project domain as such. I mean, I didn't get the question exactly.
Basically, it's like what, like let's say you're applying to like let's say like something like Amazon, Microsoft, or something. Which domain would they like to see a GSoC project in the most?
I don't think they care much about the domain which you work in. I mean, I worked on an operating system related project. Yeah, but the thing is, they want to see that you have done projects because when you do a project, you don't just learn about the domain, you learn about how to use a language in that particular way. Like the way you're using Java, Python, C right now to write a CP code or a normal interview level question code is going it's going to be way different when you do it in the development level, and that's not something you can learn unless you start developing. So if you see something like yeah, if you have worked on any project, you would have noticed you need to use oops, you need to use various other concepts and various more functionalities of a different language which you don't use anytime without it. So there's no such one domain which they look for, and especially product companies, they have like as you said, Google, Microsoft, they are very vast, okay, and they have probably a department for each of the domain that is there. So it's not something that you should focus on one domain for any one company. um, Whatever interests you, go for that. As Rahul mentioned, you'll be working on the project for the entire 3 months, and it gets kind of frustrating if you're not doing something even if you're doing something you enjoy, you get a little frustrated. So if you do something you do not enjoy, it's going to be a nightmare for you. Just do something you enjoy, something you would like to contribute to. and don't worry about the rest of it.
So, would you like to say more about the shortlisting of organizations for GSoC?
Okay. Uh, okay. So as I mentioned, the way I shortlisted my organization was I went through the entire list that was there. One by one, each organization I opened, I clicked on the if you see the GSoC website, initially it just shows you the tiles of different orgs, and once you click on it, you get a drop down with the language they use, the framework, and a little description about the organization. So my first shortlisting was based on this itself. I just clicked on it. I saw the name, I saw the language, I saw the domain, I saw the description. If it intrigued me, I added it to a Excel sheet, and I moved on. The second round of shortlisting I did was I read more into these. This significantly reduced the number of organizations and made it easier for me to look deeper into it. Because I'm a person who does not like ML. So I'm like, no, I don't want to do ML. So that was kept aside, and all the orgs related to that shifted out. I wanted to do something related to development, so a software development, so all the hardware also got also were removed from it. So in the end, I was with 23 organizations. Then I started going deep into their project list, deep into what they do, and maybe even looking at the code base for a few, looking at the PRs, looking at what I could do. So with these 23, I ended up with 2, and I started contributing to that. So and whichever I got better response from, and whichever I think I could had more possibility of me getting selected, whichever intrigued me more, I selected that. So that's how I shortlisted my org.
So, does the organization you apply for actually matter? Like, does a more known organization add more value, or there's nothing such thing like that?
There is no such thing like
There's
that.
no
There
such.
is no such thing like that except for, let's say you're applying to Google and then you've done GSoC under TensorFlow or Flutter, then it matters. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. I mean, because Google and TensorFlow are GSoC, the Google orgs itself, right? So there might be like that slide, but like it doesn't actually matter. So just whatever you
Yeah.
like, go for it.
So there's Mozilla's orgs as well, open source, and if you apply
Yeah.
to that, there are a few mentors that do recommend you for jobs. So but other than that, GSoC doing a project on its own adds value.
Yes. Yeah, it's not the organization that matters, it's the project that matters. So
Right. So, if you have any other questions, please redirect it to our IE social account. We'll be happy to answer there. So, with this, we come to the end of the session. I would like to thank everyone who attended this session and asked valuable questions. A special thanks to our panel members for sparing their time from their busy schedules. And I would like to inform you all that we have one more event lined up in the Ask IE Anything series, which is on ICPC, basically for competitive programming enthusiasts, which will take place at tomorrow, 6 p.m. Please do attend it as well. And thank you, everyone. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you everyone for attending.
thanks for calling us and thanks to all the audience members for coming today. I think we can stop recording now.